It strikes me every year that the Gospel reading for the time when we celebrate the institution of the Lord's Supper doesn't actually tell us anything about the institution of the Eucharist. John's narrative of the Last Supper speaks to us about the washing of feet and nothing about the bread and wine that have become central to Christian worship. So it seems a slightly odd Gospel for you to listen to or read at home, since the washing of feet won't be happening at all this year, and you won't be in church to receive communion. The Gospel, though, doesn't need to explain what happens. We get that from the other readings. What's important about this Gospel reading is that Jesus opens up for us what this sacrament of the Eucharist is going to mean for the world. Immediately, as he communicates to the disciples how they are to wash one another's feet and to love each other, Jesus makes this Last Supper about far more than some bread and some wine. It is the event in which Jesus is communicating to not just the disciples, but the whole of creation, about everything about his human and divine life. He offers us a gift that allows us to see into the heart of the Trinity each time the sacrament is celebrated. The bodily presence of Christ brings the fullness of humanity, the fullness of his humanity, and the fullness of his divinity, the fullness of the Godhead, into the very palm of your hand. But there's more. Because to bring the fullness of the Godhead, this brings more than just the person of Christ. It brings with it too the majesty of the Father, and crucially for us now, the blazing fire of the Spirit. The Eucharist is not a one-way street. It is the event in which we, the Church, are called to participate in Christ's mission to restore creation to its former glory. There's an exchange here. By participating in the Eucharist, we leave behind ourselves and live for the other. We leave behind ourselves and are moved by the Spirit to wash one another's feet. We leave behind ourselves and join in with the Church in heaven and the Church on earth, and sing together that unending song of praise that we hope will be ours for all eternity. It is precisely because the Eucharist is itself the life of the Church that you remain part of it, even though you're at home. You are still the Church. You're still called to wash one another's feet, something that you do at this time, oddly, by doing nothing and staying at home. You are still the Church when you stop and pray at 8 o'clock tonight and know that even though you can't be there, the Eucharist is being said for you and with you. You are still the Church, quite simply because you are baptized. Jesus becomes present among us in the bread and wine because you pray that it is so. You say Amen at the end of the Eucharistic prayer, not me. The Spirit comes down in this Eucharistic life of the Church because the Church prays that it is so. And you can continue to pray that it is so, even though you're not here in person. You can still say Amen, even though it might not be quite at the right time. You can still see into the Trinitarian life of Christ, even if the way you do that looks different for a while. I know that for many of you, not receiving communion this Easter will be very hard, and trust me, it is as hard for me celebrating alone without you there. But this shall pass, and you shall return to receiving the sacrament whenever that may be. And while you may not have been to Mass for a while, remember, you will have been participating all along.